my friends, and welcome to another edition of Live with Lava Sub. I'm Weston, or Lava Submersible, and I am here to do some art with you, and maybe talk a little bit. We're thinking about changing the name of the segment to Art and Anarchy, or Anarchy. We talked about during our last stream, and yeah, it's going to be a fun one today, so stick around. I've got some interesting... I'm going to be jumping back into digital. The mask is basically done. There's going to be some stuff I do to it, probably off stream for the rest of it, because it's going to be real tedious and not very fun to watch, and I will want to have a lot of concentration. So it won't be visually appealing. So, but stick around or check out my socials, and you'll see me post it there when it is finished. Other than that, we're going to get into some digital. I haven't done digital art in a while because AI kind of killed the vibe for me. Made me really paranoid, and besides that, just incredibly angry that well, not me specifically, but artists like me all across the world are being exploited for their labor by big corporations that don't give a fuck about us. And of course, that's par for the course, but this is an insidious breach of our privacy, of our autonomy, of our separation of us from our labor, which is already coming very... it is incredibly difficult to be a freelance or just an artist in general, and have chosen that as a career. It's a brave and difficult decision people make. So to see how we're so quickly cast aside by so many kind of is heartbreaking, and really made me dive back into physical mediums, which honestly I have reclaimed my love for. It's not that I ever lost love for it, but I'd been doing digital for so long, I'd just become more accustomed to that. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of physical art lately. Some of it very simple, very basic, but some of it I'm getting back into really honing my skills with it, and remembering that, you know, I think at a certain point I felt like I couldn't push myself further. I felt like my abilities had reached a limit, and maybe that dissuaded me from doing physical art. But I'm remembering that there are many things that are habits that aren't necessarily things that I can't unlearn, and that's great. That's a beautiful thing, and I'm really enjoying it. But that's for another time. Yeah. Today we're going to be doing some digital art. So why don't I pull up my reference for what I'm going to be drawing today. Alright. So you see here, I've collaged some images together. I was watching Carnival Row. I don't know if any of you are familiar, but I was indirectly inspired by by that show, essentially. There's some really great costume and creature work. I think Carnival Row is kind of an underrated show. I don't hear many people talking about it, but it's pretty solid, other than Orlando Bloom making some kind of strange decisions with his character in the way that he portrays it. But that's Orlando Bloom. I kind of expect these things from him, and in a way that I think is charming. I would rather you go big than not, you know, especially in something that is so big, in how it's presenting itself to you. I think Carnival Row is pretty solid. I'm not particularly into like the edgy fantasy stuff. I want to see more like hope. I think we all need it, man. I want to see more hope in my fantasy. I want to see more optimism, more fucking dive into the utopianism of it, the escape of it, you know? I want big stories. I recently watched Everything Everywhere All at Once. Finally got around to watching two of my favorite directors, or my favorite directive collaborative team. I don't know how you would put Daniels, but two of the most interesting people working in the industry right now. People I would desperately want to work with. People I think are immensely talented. I don't think I'm who they're looking for right now, but we're trying to build a career here. Damn it! I wouldn't be in LA if I didn't want to do that. Tell you what. Anyway, Carnival Row. I was watching Carnival Row and was indirectly inspired. Wanted to draw a cephalopod person. because I've never done that. At least not digitally. Anyway, that's what we're gonna be fucking around with today. And that's what you're looking at here. We've got our little cephaloid pod man. We've got some cool background I'm gonna change up a little bit here and there. Make it more aquatic. Anyway, let's get to it. I also wanted to talk about this past weekend. It was a memorial kind of yearly festival for a good, I mean, I was going to say good friend, but, you know, one of my punk rock family from Sonoma County a couple years ago shuffled off this mortal coil, and the loss was felt very heavily by our community. This was a person that we cared very much for, our friend Zach Scott, and it's a really cool event that they hold at the Phoenix Theater every year at this point. It's the second annual this past weekend. It's a benefit for Voices Sonoma County, which is a outreach organization, youth center. They do some really great work, and bands like Christian Slayer, what a magnificent name, Good Buds of Mine, Warning, George Costanza, another, just beautiful names, really. Right to Remain, Secret Fire, Redwood, and Moonsick. Some of these people are family to me. Some of these bands are people that I've known since we were nasty, dirty little punk rock goblins. I still am. But we've all changed a lot since then. And it's really beautiful to see all my friends, my family come together, celebrate somebody that was so special to us, and do something good for the community that Zach would have loved and appreciated and wanted to be involved with. And I think it's a touching tribute. It gets me all choked up, guys. Zach was a really important person. I'm a vocalist. They were a vocalist, and we just in such a white punk scene. Me and Zach were both white passing. I was, you know, I mean, I've talked about it. You know, it's interesting being white passing in a scene that has so many issues with in the past with, I mean, and in the present with racism and things like that. It's interesting what you see that no one else sees. And me and Zach really bonded over our shared negative experiences with that scene and the people who we couldn't trust. One of my favorite nights with Zach. One weekend we were partying at a buddy's house. It had been years since any of us had been there. It was his mom's house, and it was like they were selling the place. We used to party there all the time, but it had been years since we'd all been there. So we got together at this place for one final hurrah, and I think we had gone to a show and then ended up there, something like that. And someone said something kind of insensitive, and me and Zach kind of let them have it, or not let them have it, but we're kind of like mocking the statement. And they took, they called us, they said we were being racist to white people. And me and Zach looked at each other and said, "You can't be racist to white people." And then went on, like, almost in unison, in exasperation, and just went on a long rant and had a just real good bonding moment of us just knowing that we were finally able to say some of the shit that we had been wanting to say for so long, that had been driving us so crazy, and had been such a a shared experience of ours and a lot of other people like us in Sonoma County, in that punk scene. And it was good to get it off our chests and feel like we were safe. Not just because we were there with each other, but because we had, I guess you could say, leveled up. We had grown up. Put it that way. Things had changed since we first met each other. And we had been friends for years at that point. But I don't know. Something changed in that moment where we were finally not we were finally comfortable. We felt safe. We felt time had come for us to speak our minds. So I was sad. I was sad when I heard. I mean, obviously, I was sad. But it's been a really beautiful thing to see the community come together around Zach. So, unfortunately, I unable to attend. This was happening at the Phoenix Theater, legendary Phoenix Theater, Sonoma County, California, in Petaluma. Honestly, a really great venue if you're ever in the area. Just go to a show. If you're in the area on vacation or for work or whatever, anywhere near Petaluma, if it's a weekend night, they're probably got something going on there. Definitely just go. Don't go to a movie. Movie theaters in Sonoma County suck ass. Don't go do some other shit. Don't go wine tasting. Be boring. These fucking goobers. Put some money back in the community that's gonna go to a good place. Help young people play their first shows. Give them a safe place to hang out. And Phoenix does really, really beautiful things. And it's run by the wonderful Tom Gaffey, who you can find their. They have a YouTube channel at the Phoenix Theater. They do On Stage with Jim and Tom. Jim Argus, I believe his name is. And they do some really great stuff through that. Through those social media channels. Tom is Tom is very old, but Jim is young and very smart, knows what he's doing. And Tom is one of the only boomers that I like. Let me just put it that way. It's, he's a good dude. I really appreciate what he's done for the punk community in Sonoma County. He's always been there for us and stood up for us and let us host shows when we were a bunch of degenerates that would puke on the sidewalks all around the venue and get too drunk and show up anyway and be dumbasses. Jim put up with all of us and still does. He's a good dude. So supports the Phoenix Theater. And yeah, again, I want to shout out these bands. They're all really good folks and they make great music. Christian Slayer, Warning, George Costanza, Right to Remain, Secret Fire, Redwood, and Moonsick. Some of these people are the best friends I've ever had in my life. So definitely check out their music, check out their socials. All of them you can find through the names I've just told you. Wish it could have been there, but as most of you who are longtime watchers know, it's been pretty tight financially around here, so I couldn't jaunt off to Sonoma County to attend. But someday. Ooh, got all emotional and my fingers are shaky. Yeah, lots gone on in the last couple of weeks since we were live with Lava Sub. Um, I think I could talk at length about so much of what's gone on. I think we will, but yeah, I should say at this point, you know, I try and do this at the top of every program. Potential trigger warnings for uh, anybody who's got sensitivities towards some very difficult topics, politics and social commentary, and very difficult lives, uh, and potentially traumatic triggers ahead. But hopefully uh, y'all are here for some of that. I hope everyone is comfortable before they continue. But yeah, so first of all, I wanted to talk about the derailments. I have family in Ohio, and it was really upsetting to hear about all this going on. People I care about very much, and also a lot of the discourse that has gone on around it is incredibly frustrating to me. I don't know how many people are looking into the facts of this, but yeah, it is pretty irregular to have 3 derailments within days of each other in 1 month. That is beyond the national standard. Not the national average, but certainly the national standard. And and wouldn't it be good if trains didn't derail? Wouldn't that just be what we're looking to do? I don't know why there's uh, any question about that. It kind of seems absurd to me. And it also seems absurd for a president to be strike breaking and then suddenly, weeks later, a series of very preventable accidents that could cause a lot of harm to a lot of people. Pretty pretty fucking disappointing. I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. If you've been watching for any period of time, you know this. I don't much care for liberals either. So it's been very frustrating to see a lot of the apologizing and justifying Joe Biden's previous actions and current actions. It's it's galling. It's inhuman. I don't understand how people can be so callous uh, to think that their political faves can do no harm when in fact that's predominantly their job, as it would appear uh, by their actions. I think I think all of this to say that these are incredibly preventable, and we can tell because almost every country that doesn't have a privatized railway system does a lot better in not having these kinds of accidents that contaminate potentially hundreds of square miles around a derailment. There might be accidents, sure, but it is pretty strange to see that all of Europe has less average train accidents than just the United States of America. And that's countries with all kinds of different railway ways to organize their railways. Many of them in coordination with each other because, they have incredible train systems outside of the U.S. Uh, for freight and for passengers. Sam points out a great and puts forth an excellent point here, is that because of the lack of need of individual motor transports for every person, like we have so much of a dependence on in the United States, so much of the infrastructure is built around rails in Europe and other places, basically, other than the U.S. Many places other than the U.S. It's hard to come up with averages, but um, like one place it's well known for its rail systems is Japan, and their average accidents per year absolutely dwarfs ours. And sure, it's an island country, island nation, and it's fairly small, but I think it has a lot less to do with their size and more to do with how they've organized their rail systems. They're some of the most dependable in the world, and they're some of the cleanest, safest. Meanwhile, in the United States, even if you're trying to use Amtrak right now to get up, like me and my partner, we've used Amtrak to get from Los Angeles to Sonoma County I think twice at this point. And we've noticed in the last, just couple of years since we moved here, that the price has gone up ridiculously. While airline travel or air travel, the prices have gone down. But that is predominantly because of the way that these newer, smaller airlines are marketing their ticket prices, where every checked bag costs additional money. They nickel and dime you for literally everything in those kinds of situations. So it's like but it has still become really difficult to determine which way you are going to travel up and down, even just the state. Amtrak does provide passenger trains all over the country, but I don't know if you know this, our passenger trains and our freight trains use the same rail lines. We don't even have separate rail lines for one and the other. So freight trains rightfully have the rails right of way. So there's frequent stops where you have to stop and let freight trains pass, making travel even that much longer. And in California, I don't know if this is specific to California, it's just my experience, has incredible difficulty trying to get more public transportation in the form of rails set up. There have been so many initiatives put forth and funding even delivered, and yet many counties, especially wealthy ones like Marin County, have fought against the idea of having rails taking us up and down the state. Which is incredibly frustrating. Like Sam was saying, our reliance on vehicles, on personal cars, is a huge detriment, especially if you're not wealthy. I can't even afford to own a car. like they're too expensive. Not just the insurance, not just the initial cost of buying it, not just it's the maintenance, the upkeep, keeping it clean. These every little thing about owning a car costs you money, and it's not cheap. Meanwhile, even in Los Angeles, where it's not necessarily that good, you can get a Metro card for a year for an incredibly minor cost to yourself. But at the same time, because of how public transportation is set up in Los Angeles, those are sadly often reported as not being very safe ways to travel around the city. Not to mention it not being very it, they're not being they're not a there's not a large enough system of rails to get you everywhere you need to go. It's still lacking. They're working on it. And they've been working on it for a really long time, but unfortunately, that's still where we are at in Los Angeles with public transport. You can use buses, and the Metro Pass does cover not just the buses, but also like all kinds of all kinds of other ways of transportation. So between all of it, it is a pretty solid investment to just have a Metro card, but it is still an incredible expense that were they publicly owned rather than privately owned, we would all be much better off, especially those of us who are broke. And yeah, if there was more tax money, public money going into those kinds of services, they would also be able to be safer, be more accommodating. Just a lot more, even jobs going into it. So more people employed. I mean, that's one of the big problems with private industry being so heavily involved with the motor vehicles is that all of this is individually owned, from the mechanic shops to the um, the insurance companies. They're all privately owned companies that are notoriously like hard to trust and uh, verifiably corrupt. A lot of the shops that you go to, I mean, it's it's known that they're gonna try and get you for every last dime you have. You go get your car taken care of, and you have this one thing you need done: your oil changed, your tires changed, something like that. And in the process of them doing this very simple procedure, oftentimes you're going to end up with reports coming back that X, Y, or Z needs to be fixed, and most people, because of their infamiliarity with motor vehicles, and and whose fault is that? But they don't know whether or not they can trust these people. I was in car service, and I know firsthand. I sold service. I was in the service office at a Toyota dealership for a number of years, and even at a slightly more reputable place like that dealership, there were a lot of problems with how some of the technicians made their money, let's say. And some of the service writers are, I mean, way worse than the technicians. Let's say all of the service writers are worse than the technicians. Our nerd crafty friend Zach worked at that same service department, and he can verify exactly what I'm saying here. There were certain expectations of us that essentially were really hard to swallow because of the how unethical the business practices were. And I'm not exaggerating when I say they were better than a lot of the other, and not better in that they were able to do the jobs easier, faster, cheaper, better in the fact that they were more upfront with what was going on than a lot of the smaller, you know, auto zones and stuff like that. The little nickel and dime shops, which will just find problems for you. In some cases, there's been criminal investigations to find if they're making problems for you. So, it's, yeah, no small problem that we rely so heavily on personal vehicles. And one that better public transportation would very easily fix. And here we have all of these tragic derailments, loss of life, and not to mention potential for what happens next. Who knows? Truly. Um, some of the projections are terrifying, stretching beyond just the site of, like in Ohio, the actual spill and hazardous waste, and even outside the state. It's projected to potentially be harmful to wildlife, to people, to water sources. It's terrifying, the level of how casually it's being treated. It's absolutely terrifying to me. These are people we put in office to protect us. Put in office on the with the trust that they are looking out for the best interests of their constituents. Because we put them in power. We gave them the ability to take money from fucking lobbyists and other uh, alleged sources of employment and potential for legalized stock market information. Can't remember the right term for that. You know what I mean? It's like there's no shortage of corruption in these people. That is all predominantly the fault of capital. It being such a easy to attain thing for people who already have immense power. The power that corrupts absolutely. So yeah, it's heartbreaking to know that without us, the people, making a big fuss, going through potentially months of people being arrested for protesting, much like we see in Cop City in Atlanta. I mean, these are people fighting for the right thing. We don't need fucking Cop City. We need trains that don't derail and pollute multiple states within the proximity of the derailment. We need unions, union protections for these workers who were just striking until our president broke the strike. Absolute monster. It broke, I guess, recently, within the last day or so, that Norfolk Southern is going to be ordered to pay for cleanup costs. But what that looks like is unclear. What does that mean? Is it going to be like so many other disaster cleanups, where it's a half measure, it's half done, and then suddenly they're gone? We've seen it over and over again in the United States. Funding runs out for these things, and instead of the state stepping in, as they should, to enforce, like in this case, Norfolk Southern, to continue covering these costs, just stop. Look at Flint. I mean, it's an excellent example of basically exactly what they're doing right now in Ohio and the surrounding states. So, yeah, I mean, again, it is up to the citizens to hold these politicians to their word, to put their feet to the fire and make them do the jobs we elected them to fucking do. And it shouldn't be our responsibility. But because they absolutely have none, they refuse to take any, it's up to us. And that's bullshit. Speaking of incompetence, y'all hear about these UFOs? I love aliens, man. I really do. I want to believe in them, and I I truly am one of these absolute nutballs that doesn't think that they have weird like uh like I don't think about aliens like they're us. I think that's one of the main problems we have with understanding like uh, maybe not understanding, but one of the main issues I see in discussing like potential life on in other galaxies within this universe. Like it's almost for sure a thing. Just the sheer odds of it. What I think is a mistake is thinking that beings that could travel almost for sure faster than the speed of light, they would have to, or have incredibly long lifespans, or have some way of getting to our universe, our galaxy, our planet. If they had any way of getting this far, because we've scanned, and for all we know, there aren't many examples, or any examples, of uh, like sentient, intelligent, spacefaring people anywhere in our vicinity. So someone would have to come from a very, 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 very mind-bogglingly far distance to make it to us. Now, you think they would do that just for like uh, our planet's dwindling resources? I think it's kind of silly, and it definitely like makes me think that it's revealing in a way of a certain kind of socially acceptable cynicism and uh, even kind of like oh damn it, how long have I been drawing on this layer? That whole time. Uh, yeah, it shows a certain nihilism, cynicism, um, that, but also an awareness that the way that we uh, have treated each other on this planet has made it very difficult for us to see people who are any different from us coming in and doing incredible harm to us. I think obviously there's no like verifiable or I don't want to make anyone feel bad here, but there's not like reputable sources for a lot of the like alien conspiracy stuff. I was really into conspiracy for a really long time, and none of it is convincing if you really like look at it and you're using an objective perspective and not just like kind of wanting to see what you want to see. I want to believe in aliens, and I do. I do believe that mathematically it's almost impossible that there aren't other intelligent beings in this universe. But I'm not convinced that any of the abduction stories or sightings, any of that stuff is compelling past like a point of this is interesting and I wish it were real. I want to believe. Like that show. You know, with Keanu Reeves or something. Keanu Reeves and Gina Davis, right? Scolder and Mully, yeah, perfect. You know, that show. Um, yeah, like, I think conspiracy theory, alien conspiracy, or alien theories and stuff like that, it's all really cool. It's all really fun, but it's just, you know, I think at a certain point, you have to look at who your bedfellows are and really make an assessment of what all of this is saying about humanity and if it's something you would actually want to endorse. Because, like, some of it's pretty cringe. In fact, that brings me to my next point. Because we were talking about UFOs, but did you guys know about Bigfoot? Did y'all know about Bigfoot? So Bigfoot's like a big ape man that supposedly exists. And it's like a lot of other potentially big ape men that potentially exist all over the planet. But for some reason, Bigfoot has gotten a lot of attention, and some of it very strange. um, I grew up in Northern California, Redding, but which is where Bigfoot is supposedly hiding out. You know, and in fact, even had a teacher in elementary school who was like a Bigfoot like he would go out and like look for a Bigfoot. He was a believer, man. But what a lot of people don't know is that there's a lot of really weird conspiracy theories involved with involving the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot, and all of it is very very silly. Um, do you know that some of that mythology is tied into the whole like reptilian people stuff? Yeah, in fact, it is. Some people don't know this, but Mount Shasta has a lot of weird New Age, hippy dippy kind of beliefs centered around it that don't even necessarily stem all from kind of weirdo New Age people. Some of it is like really old, and like I think there's some. I have this. I think I pulled this up. Uh, but some like connections to like indigenous folk tales or mythology. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, uh, there's quite a bit. Yeah. Okay, so there's quite a bit of like crossover um, between like some folk tales and things like that from indigenous American different cultures, and that talk about creatures that could be described similarly to Bigfoot. Some of them in groups, some of them alone. And yeah, but the so I think in regards to a lot of the Bigfoot stuff, a lot of it's like a part of like a cultural conversation, you know? Like early Western settlers kind of like hearing some of these stories and putting their own spin on it, things like that. Very common all over the world. Did I mean to do this line? I didn't mean to do this line. Um, and resharing these stories, putting a new spin on it, all that stuff. You know, this is a fairly common across the planet for different cultures that come to inhabit the same space, end up sharing with each other and all. So it's a fascinating thing, but when you get to Mount Shasta, there's a lot of both. A lot of like uh, folktale or mythology elements. A lot of just outright goober conspiracy theory, new age, crunchy kind of belief systems, which definitely fun to look into. So let me see. For instance, some people there's some theory that goes around that like there are Bigfoot that have hollowed out Mount Shasta and live inside it and have for hundreds of years, and they are the ancient descendants of Atlantis. If I'm not mistaken, this right. I don't know if they have a theory of how they got all the way over here, but it probably is like, you know, they teleported because they're magical. But it's all very silly. I've always loved Bigfoot and all the mythology and nonsense kind of surrounding it, the conspiracy theories. I think cryptids aren't necessarily even my bag. It's not like something that unanimously I'm just on board with it. But for whatever reason, maybe it's because where I grew up, or maybe it's maybe it's this or that. But I think a lot of it is it's just a fun concept. Like, and it's not necessarily unbelievable. Like, creatures like Bigfoot did kind of exist. Our earliest ancestors wouldn't have looked too dissimilar from a Bigfoot. There are like actual scientific studies that have gone into like whether or not these exact kind of inquiries. Um, but but yeah, I just think it's fun to think about. Like, how fun is that idea where you just a bunch of a Bigfoot family lives inside Mount Shasta and they like are ancient Atlanteans or some shit. There's also like a whole bunch of Lemuria myths around Mount Shasta. Oh man, there's Mount Shasta is just one of those places where like a lot of like modern new age culture kind of, especially the kind of more conspiratorial ones, kind of pop up. Redding, which is just an hour south of Mount Shasta, is where I grew up, and if you live anywhere between like I don't know, north of Sonoma County, basically anywhere to like Portland. You know, a lot of that chunk from California to Oregon is full of a lot of really racist, really uh, conservative kind of people. Reading was, as I've mentioned several times, a what's the word? Enclave of white supremacy, somewhere where they have all kind of congregated, or a big portion of them have congregated and organized. It was a big part of my childhood encountering these fucking crazy people. And as white passing as I am, there, people were always curious, well, where are you from? Yeah. You could be in a Safeway, and it'd be like, I literally had a child, like, not a child. I was like 16, 17, and this kid was like 13, 15. I walk in with my dad. Everybody else goes to the bathroom, so I'm just like hanging out by the entrance. And these kids sitting on a bench there just start grilling me on where I'm from. Like, grilling me on my ethnicity, just guessing. And in no way did this feel safe or comfortable. This felt like, I'm going to have to go fight these kids in a second. This is going to get scary really fast. And I only, I think there's a number of contexts where I wouldn't have felt that way. But I grew up there, and I knew better. When you grow up alongside people who are just children when you first meet them, you watch them develop into these frothing mouth Nazi fucking fascists. You see it firsthand where it comes from, how insidious, the demands that are put on them to develop these beliefs. It's amazing that anyone I know from there didn't turn out much, that any of us turned out healthy, well-meaning adults doing our best, because so much potential to just be an awful, awful racist loser. So yeah, growing up around there, you start realizing that, you learn to distrust some of this stuff, because a lot of the space of, once you enter the conspiracy theory space, you are entering into a kind of a space that you will eventually run into Nazi propaganda, and for sure different flavors of white supremacy. It is inevitable. Name one conspiracy, and I will tell you how it eventually connects with fascism, with Nazism, with white supremacy. That is eventually how I found my way out of that space. Because for a long time, I thought I could navigate my way around it. Until it was clear I couldn't. And no one can. It is, in my estimation, impossible. I could be wrong. But I would challenge anyone who says that I am entirely incorrect in my assessment here, because I spend a lot of time in conspiracy world, and I can only say that if you are disagreeing with me, that it might come from a place of not knowing. and that is the only, and ignorance is the only excuse I will give. Although I do think that it's hard to feign ignorance in a lot of this stuff, because it's in some cases very blatant. Um, like how Ike's reptilians conspiracy theory lines up so much with the fascist Turner Diaries assertion about Jewish people, the banks, etc. You know, this is all fantasy. It's a intended. It is intended to sow distrust for marginalized people, which is pretty wild. You know, especially considering how much of this is like the royal family, they're lizard people, blah blah blah. But when you investigate that a little further, eventually you come to uh, ancient alien stuff. You end up encountering with um, uh, masonry stuff. You end up connecting to all these different conspiracy threads that people will tie together on the internet and do. And eventually find their way back to the same racist origins that most of conspiracy theory shares. To be fair, it wasn't always like this. I think not, at least as apparently as it is now. I mean, with QAnon and things like that, it's really clear where it all comes from. In a lot of ways, it literally was born from the birther movement um, about Barack Obama, who, you know, I don't have any love for Obama, but you gotta, that was racist as hell. That whole movement of people saying, you know, he was born in Kenya, etc., etc. I mean, obviously, it was born out of racism. It was headed up by Donald fucking Trump. Where do you think it came from? Anyway, yeah. But when I first got into conspiracy theory, it was very much coming from like I got into it around the time of like loose change and America did 9/11 stuff, because I fucking hated George Bush and I wouldn't have put any of that shit past him. But the more you learn about how improbable that is, honestly, shouts out to Zach, because he did a hell of a job. Like, you know, kind of like basically checking me on that specific thing over and over again throughout the years. You know, like, how improbable is it? There are so many people in the government involved, and none of them have ever been able, have ever, regardless of, uh, with how often politicians bicker about so many serious things in ways that are deeply unserious, like this wouldn't have come up already, you know? So no one in the entire Bush administration or surrounding political apparatus of the time would have caught wind of this and blown all of the whistles, set all of the alarms off. Come on. Beyond that, it's, yeah. There's just a lot of problems with the conspiracy world, and many of them come from the fact that they're just trying to put a simple answer on very complicated problems because it's comfortable, because it's easy, because it doesn't require uh, political involvement, because it doesn't require getting out of the house and protesting, it doesn't require writing to your senator, your representatives. None of that. It's an easy answer to very, very complicated issues. There's comfort there. I get that. That's why I was there. I didn't like how complicated shit is. I'm an idiot. I'm very open about this. I am dumb. Smart enough to admit I'm dumb, but damn, this brain don't work. But yeah, there are in a way, there are much simpler answers than the conspiracy theorists want you to believe there are. I mean, it is reductive, but it's fair to say that a predominant amount of our issues as a society in the United States and worldwide, by and large, are the cause of capitalism. Of course, white supremacy, misogyny, uh, uh, imperialism, all of these things are just as big an issue, obviously. However, they are what many on the left would call intersectional issues, things that we would like to fight against. Um, but because we live in a society that is so dependent and reliant on capitalism, the holders of power and holders of capital tend to be the people at the top of the hierarchy of power. So why oh why would they ever put an end or try and make more egalitarian this system that works perfectly for them and very, very, very poorly for us? Why would they change that? Well, they're not going to. Not unless we do something. That is our role within society. As much as we don't want to do that. Oh, this looks sick! Okay, on that note, I have to pee. I will be back in like 3 minutes. So much less than 3 minutes, but we are back. Hello, hello. We are have squidman. Actually, it's a cuttlefish, I think. But either way, I'm very happy with this right now. Obviously, long way to go still, but I'm just making a couple of adjustments while I have all of the layers down. Here we go. It's looking a little better. Right, so we were talking about conspiracy theory, we were talking about Bigfoot for a minute there. We were talking about how conspiracy theory leans hard into the right, and yeah, oh, right, so we were all, because we were talking about the UFOs that have been spotted all over, and Toko absolutely were the talk of Twitter for several days in a row there, if any of you are on Twitter. Like, I foolishly am! Uh, I swear it's for work. It's not because I love discourse. Um, uh, but yeah, aliens were all over Twitter for a bunch of days in a row there, because we kept having these UFO sightings. Oddly, this coincided with, like, within literal days of the supposed spying Chinese balloon or whatever. Uh, I think it's pretty clear from everything that's come out since then it wasn't a spy balloon. That was a exaggeration, catastrophization, if I will. Use the term from my therapist of what was actually going on there. Um, and shortly after that, the administration talking about changing the way we would watch the skies, essentially, for other similar small balloon operated flying objects above United States airspace. So strange that we kept shooting down uh, these quote unquote UFOs. That the more we find them, that they're just balloons. they're just balloons, guys. Like, they were unidentified at the time, and I think really they wanted a little bit of a distraction from all of the real life news that was going on, like the train derailments we were talking about, or the transphobic the legislation being written to effectively erase trans people from existence in some states. Actual politics, and serious social issues we should be paying attention to, but instead we're going to we're going to pretend to take seriously aliens for a second here, and let's just, yeah, great use of our time, and just incredible discourse that it created. I really loved all of it. I wish we could go back. So yeah, so UFOs were balloons. We have not found any aliens, and that's sad. Bigfoot may or may not exist, may or may not be an alien, may or may not live inside of Mount Shasta with a Bigfoot family. Sorry, just going over what we were talking about earlier. Oh, so this is less consequential. So I'm a big fan of Sam Cedar. I don't necessarily love the debate bro thing. I can recognize its importance within, like, modern kind of like leftist try movements trying to use the tools available to them to spread the message, to promote or inspire people to be more involved, get involved with organizations, things like that. As you all, I'm sure, are aware, I'm a big fan of the left tube, bread tube space. There's a lot of creators in that space that I think are really great. There's a lot of stuff that happens in that space, like we've seen in the last couple weeks, that I think is really trash, and people don't know how to discourse past what they experienced in middle school, and that's disappointing. But overall, I think that I think it serves a purpose, and I will never. I don't plan to devalue the service that it does have. Uh, and as I'm saying, big fan of Sam Cedar. I think Sam Cedar does really great work. Very smart dude. Very interesting individual. And it wasn't until the other day when I was my phone just started. I was like doing some art or something, and my phone auto played from probably like a Hasanabi YouTube repost or post to Sam Cedar, and I was like not looking at him. I wasn't looking at the screen. Working on art or something else. I can't remember what. And I just hear the voice, and I'm like, wait. Is one of the most well-known people in leftist political discourse right now Fenton from Home Movies? And it fucking blew my brain apart. Thinking about one of the people, Robert Crowder's the kid I knew in school. Steven Crowder. Steven Crowder, one of the people Steven Crowder's most afraid of is Fenton. The voice of Fenton. And that's just really beautiful to me. It's one of the most beautiful things about being alive right now. That's all. I just think this is really fascinating, and it kind of blew my mind when it hit me. I had to tell literally everybody that. Did you know that Fenton is really good at debates? It's really funny though because sometimes he'll start doing like different voices for like different makeup of guys or doing people's voices and stuff like that, and it's just like, oh fuck, that's Fenton. Yeah, Sam Cedar's actually had a really, really wonderful career. A lot of really interesting voice acting jobs over the years. Not to mention, I guess he was also in Sex and the City. I'm just looking through his uh, like appearances. Yeah, a lot of interesting jobs, um, including episodes of Wonder Show's in Assy McGee. Uh, Eventually, Bob's Burgers, obviously Hugo. But yeah, I think this is really wonderful. Um, it's nice to know that that the entertainment industry does have people in it that I could actually communicate with, and it wouldn't be a nightmare trying to explain political theory to a 4-year-old. Speaking of Orlando Bloom, I'm just kidding, Orlando. I know you listen to every episode, bud. I'm just yanking your chain. Yeah, me and Orlando go way back. Best buds. Um, I introduced him and Katy Perry to each other. Hmm. Did I? Okay, I guess there's a little bit of doo-doo-doos, little who's this and what's it's I can keep adding in here. Ooh, too much. Nope. There we go. Kind of roughing it in still. That's basically our friend. I'm gonna probably have to. Well, do I want hair on this cuddly man? Oh, oh, little hat maybe? Oh, that's not a hat. I don't know what that is. That's pretty bad, but that's a hat of kinds. Kind of cute. What? Okay, so what if I took this underlayer hair and tried to like throw it on this head? So we got little curly cues. Oh wait, right, no ear. So this would just all go back down into this little croppy curlies. Luckily, I have a lot of experience drawing curly hair because I am most of the time the only model I can afford. So, and if you have never seen me in real life, actually, you just saw me like an hour ago, less than. Yeah, you just saw my face. I guess my hair is in a hat right now. If you don't know this, I have curly hair. That's all I'm trying to say. I have very curly hair, so I have lots of experience drawing it. So I'm just gonna whip this on out. I mean, I'm really not trying that hard right now, but I do have experience. That's all I'm saying. Alright, what's this look like? Go away. Oh no. Um, I don't think this works. Let's get rid of that too. Um, kinda did. Kinda did. Although I think I can't. I don't know enough about Prince to know if he would be mad that you called him a cephalopod or I think that was really nice of you. Speaking of the word cephalopod, do you remember? You know, you would know better than me. I was never a big fan of Prince. Not that he isn't incredible and talented and all that stuff. It's just like I was really I like my funk a specific way, and he doesn't do it that way. No, that's not a controversial statement, is it? Yeah, I like aggressive music, and Prince makes very pretty nice music. Which, yeah, it's great if that's your bag. Just not, it's not me, bro. If it doesn't go da 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 da, I turn it off. I turn that shit off. No, I like a lot of kinds of music, but yeah. Um, let's dupe this. Let's make it a different color so we can see it on the background. I don't want to start coloring it. I want to establish the mood more. Does this work in perspective? I thought it did with the references, but now that I'm looking at it, maybe it does need to be colored. Maybe I'll just do a quick color job real fast. Anyway, does this really not work? I thought this, it looks like it works here. Maybe the model needs to be a little shorter. Like lower in the frame, I guess is what I really mean. Just slightly though. It's not like a huge discrepancy. It's just like, do you see how like the character kind of like doesn't feel rooted in the ground because their crotch is like so high in the frame. I think that's what's doing it to my head here. Is that it just feels like they almost seem to be floating, but that doesn't matter. That's what I was going to change in the background. Okay, I remember what I'm doing now. Okay, because I like this background, but it's kind of dry. I wanna make it wet and very dark. So I'm gonna start off. Uh, Actually, how are we doing? Yeah, let's do it this way. So I'm gonna choose a color very close to black, but not black. That's blue. We're not doing that. Right around here. I think that's what we're looking. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's very dark. I'm just gonna block in some of these big shapes. Try not to take too much time on this. I'm not gonna get out like the ruler or shape tool or anything like that to make sure everything is architecturally accurate. We're just gonna go rough stuff in here. Getting visited by the cat. Oh, Mr. Sam. He's been real trouble but today. Our roommate's out of town again and they always get a little anxious and behave a little bit bratty first couple days. Luckily he's only out for a couple of days, so they'll be back to their usual lazy selves soon. But along with being a little bratty, they've been also very cute, so kind of hard to complain about it. They're just little guys. They don't know no better. So sometimes they're just little brats, you know? Not much to do about it. Yeah. I think worshipping them did something to their egos, and now they think they can just walk all over us. Um, and we kind of just have to live with that reality. There's not much we can do about it. At least as far as I know. I'm not like I'm not bad with animals. I think I'm just too nice to them. So I like probably shouldn't have them. It's like, children. I shouldn't have children not because I'm bad with children, but because like I would have no way to tell them not to do certain things that isn't like that's going to help anyone. Like, yeah, I'm too much of a weird little chaos goblin myself to tell little chaos goblins how to not be chaos goblins. That sounds like the opposite of what I do. I encourage goblinry in all its forms. Which actually brings me to my next topic. Y'all want to talk about Hogwarts Legacy? No! That's because nobody fucking does. Damn it! Yeah. I I think there's been no shortage of discourse around J.K. Rowling and the Hogwarts universe over the last few years since she went TERF. I would argue she was always a TERF. We just didn't know yet. Um, did you know Robert Galbraith? Her mystery novel pseudonym is uh, potentially an allusion to a fucked up weird not conspiracy, but a conversion therapist. True story. She has denied it, but her denial was like, well, I just like the name Robert is all. I don't know why you guys are so triggered. Cucks. I don't know. That lady's fucking dumb as shit, dude. Should have just shut the fuck up and made her money. Never had any controversy. But TERFs don't know when to shut the fuck up. They're stupid in a way a lot of conservatives aren't. Historically, anyway. Things have changed, obviously, over the last couple decades in American conservatism. I guess UK conservatism as well. A lot more open racism and things like that. Bigotry. Acceptance towards fascists. You know. That kind of stuff. So, speaking of fascists, did you guys, this Hogwarts Legacy game, did you know that, like, regardless of J.K. Rowling being involved, it was still, one of the lead developers who was allowed to leave the project, wasn't fired, was allowed to leave the project, because they were a weirdo Gamergate misogynist. That's fun. Yeah, and also the weird anti-Semitic tropes that appear throughout that game. That's kind of weird. Also, just relating back to J.K. Rowling's goblins. That's all. It's all very curious. Very strange. So yeah, I didn't understand, and I really never really understood the fandom of Harry Potter. Um, it's like mid as a book, as like a concept, as you know, written. It is incredibly mid. A lot of people love it, nostalgia, all that stuff. I think that's great. You know, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum here. Um, but yeah, I think it never made any fucking sense to me. I read Harry Potter when I was really young, and I guess I turned like 12, and suddenly it wasn't interesting to me anymore. I don't know what happened, but yeah. Also, I just started reading better fantasy, and just literature in general. That suddenly a lot of the things J.K. Rowling was writing about just seemed like she was plagiarizing from better writers. So I don't know. I never really got it. Um, so suffice it to say that going back years later and like having so much discourse on the topic, realizing how much of what we were reading back then, even just in the books, was pretty cringe. Um, it's nice that it's being reanalyzed, and I guess in a way we have J.K. Rowling's bigotry to thank for reanalyzing her very mid books and calling them exactly what they are. Makes me happy. Validates my my feelings on her work. Yeah, I mean, and I'm a big fan of pulp writers, that kind of big sweeping genre fiction, that kind of shit. That's my bag. Y'all know that if you've been watching me for any amount of time. I love that shit. I'll take just about any level of it. If it's not that good, I'll still probably enjoy it because I like that kind of shit. Um, but when the living author uh, won't acknowledge any of the when the living author does a worse job of like being self-aware about the work that they created and put out into the world, and in fact, instead of like uh, taking a moment and thinking about what you were saying and how these messages were affecting people across the world, your very popular novels, maybe, I don't know, do something to counter, like to try and, uh, I think a good example of this is one of the greats, Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien. After The Hobbit came out, a lot of criticism was levied against him that a lot of the ways that the Hobbits were written were easily read as anti-Semitic tropes of Jewish people. And you know what Tolkien did? You know, a man who was born in 1878 or some shit. No, he did. He didn't. Uh, he didn't write racist screeds, bigoted screeds about how he was right actually, and all of these woke skulled moralists are in fact trying to bring down society about their ears. He listened is what he did. Really really simple concept. He just fucking listened to the Jewish communities, people who criticized what he was doing, and he changed. He changed in the Lord of the Rings how those depictions were, instead of using these very negative ascriptions, were instead used in a very positive way. The dwarves went from being fairly thin as the world building of it goes, to being much more elaborate, much more in depth, and much more honorable. Honoring that you know, there wasn't much he could do to there wasn't much he could do to undo the harm that he had already done, but try and turn that into something that wasn't. It was, instead of being hurtful and uh, putting a entire culture in a very negative box, he adjusted that to make it something that was what they wanted, you know, or just taking criticism at this point is such a huge thing, and it shouldn't be. It's fucking pathetic that that's the reality of the situation. Is that the simple act of listening can be seen as such a uh, overwhelmingly supportive act. So yeah, Tolkien wasn't perfect, but I would argue with anyone who said he didn't try harder than a lot of well, at least J.K. Rowling. So yeah, no shortage of issues with Hogwarts Legacy. Very curious. Maybe frustrated even at a lot of the discourse surrounding Hogwarts Legacy. I think there's a lot that that just didn't need to happen that happened, and I think everyone could have done a little bit better in handling that, at least within the online left. We really we really fucked up. And yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking to see some people whose work is incredibly respectable and powerful and has done some real good in the world. Those voices being used to cape for a weird, petty, cowardly bigot that lives in a castle in England. You know, I think that's pretty cringe, personally. not Bayzid, not PogChamp, but cringe, my friends. I don't know. Now that it's all in there, it looks fine, right? Perspective of it seems fine. Yeah, just gonna leave it. But what I wanted to do, what I'm changing here, this is this is dry, as I was saying. It's very dry in here, and we want wet. That hard H in there. We want wet. What we're gonna do to get there, we're gonna make wet floor. You know what color wet is? It's blue. Blue is the color of wet. Just the color of wet does sound like a 60s song. You can just imagine some weird folk number in the style of Peter, Paul, and Mary. Jangly guitars. Four-part harmony. Blue is the color of wet. That's what I think about that. That's what I think about that. Is it rude of me to dislike Tom Hanks now that his sons are stupid and I hate them? I know no one talks about Colin Hanks, but uh, I know a few people who've worked with Colin Hanks, and that's pretty bad things to say about him and that experience. So I don't know. I think he's a talented actor. There's that, but that only goes really so far, and you're an asshole on set. So, oof. It's just funny. He's known as one of like the nice guys of the industry or whatever, and he might not be that nice, judging by how his children turned out. That's all I'm saying. Kind of sus. Like I guess there is a lot to be said about the parasocial kind of relationships we have with celebrities, where like these kind of assessments are not necessarily very helpful. Like, what is any of good, bad? What does any of this shit mean? All that stuff, blah blah blah. Uh, yeah, a lot of it's just marketing, you know. Um, I mean, they have Hollywood Walk of Fame stars to claim, and you gotta have good PR for that. You gotta, rally for your Academy Award nominations. You gotta make sure you're on good terms with all the shitty people on the Academy Board. Uh, all that stuff. You just gotta. Um, the the public perception has to be right about you, or uh, yeah. It's a funny thing in how we ascribe these personalities to people who we never meet and will never meet, and whose entire job it is to be performers and present us with people that they are not. And I think it a little foolish to think that once they're on the red carpet, suddenly they're showing us who they actually are, right? Why would they do that? um, but still, I do think it's kind of funny that this nice guy of Hollywood is brought up fucking Chet Hanks. Oh, I feel sorry for anyone who has ever actually met Chet Hanks. Like, it just seems like a really bad hang. Abhorrent vibes. I don't know what number Chet was in the order of making babies Tom Hanks went through, but he's the one that does the patois and releases bad music and did the whole white boy summer thing. Do you know what I'm talking about, even, Sam? No, you didn't. Please tell me you're on mic right now. Can they hear you? Oh my god. You should get on mic. I want to hear more about this, and I think everyone would be interested to hear it. Sam's got an interesting story that they just dropped on me out of the middle of nowhere. Uh, Whenever you're ready, Sam, please take it away. To, it is on topic. Anyone listening, I want you to know this will be on topic, and kind of just blew my mind. I want to know more immediately. So we're taking this little detour right now. Join us. No rush, no pressure. I'll just keep vamping. Uh, Sam's getting. They didn't expect to be on mic today, so they're getting audio stuff set up. Let me try and set Sam up with this without giving away too much. So, Sam and I met in the theater in Sonoma County. We went to the same junior college, both in theater programs there. Sam is an incredible, talented performer in so many different realms of art, performance art, and eventually wound up doing a lot of the like fire spinning and things like that I've never even tried before because it scares me. I am afraid of fire like the Scarecrow. I'm a lot like the Scarecrow. I don't know if you know this, but we're both dumb. We're both kind of hot, but in a weird way, and we're both afraid of fire. Yeah. So Sam has an interesting story from that period of their life where they were doing fire spinning and those kinds of performing arts that I think are incredibly impressive mixtures of dance and artistic expression and just a still kind of like relatively new medium of performance art that many people enjoy, and I am definitely among them.
Okay, I'm on mic now. I think everyone can hear me.
Welcome to the program, Sam.
Hey,
Thank you for all you do for us.
it's been a while since I've been on mic during one of your streams.
True, very true.
Yeah, so I was telling Weston that like cuz I wasn't sure which of the Hankses this was, like, but I just looked him up. Chet Chester Hanks, born August 4th, 1990. So, um unbeknownst to me, like at the time, like I had been spinning fire with my buddy Connor for probably 3 or 4 years at this point, and every once in a while he has like some kind of hookup where he gets gigs through friends, and he got this gig to spin fire at a party like up in the hills in Sonoma County. Like I don't even remember exactly where this location was, and it's probably the reason why they had the party there. But like I think it was, yeah, it was his birthday party or something like that, but we drove up there. It was just me and Connor. We roll up. There's like a food truck that's just giving away food when we get there. They ask us to spin fire out by the swimming pool, and like Yeah, it was a bizarre like situation because like eventually we found out that the party was for Chet Hanks, and I'm like, wait, like Tom Hanks, Chet Hanks, and like somebody nodded, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is absolutely bizarre. I don't think I actually got to talk to him at all, but from what I understood is like he was an unpleasant person.
Some things don't change.
Yeah, yeah, I just thought it was like super. You'd bring up this person, I'm like, wait a minute, why does that sound familiar?
So fucking funny, dude. So, uh, for all those uninitiated, Chet Hanks, somewhere in the last few years, uh, started showing up at like public events and things like that, and doing a Jamaican patois in a way that I guess
Mm.
some people from that community thought was actually kind of nice and a moment of appreciation rather than appropriation. But everything Chet Hanks has said around this makes him seem like he's kind of a creep at best. Uh, Things about like, well, I did it because I was sleeping with a Jamaican person, blah blah blah. Um, and you know, like uh, I think Chet Hanks is probably more aware, self-aware than he pretends he is in public, which is why I was bringing up this whole thing about him and Tom Hanks and Tom Hanks's and many other celebrities like uh, public persona, I suppose you would call it. Um, well, yeah, I think so. Chet Hanks's public persona is by and large a culturally unaware, uh, kind of like aggressively like masculine hetero kind of presenting tough guy energy, but like he comes from incredible privilege and almost for sure never had a difficult day in his life. Like he was interviewed by Andrew Callahan of Channel 5 long time ago. I just remember a lot of that interview was just like him like justifying this public persona as being like, well, I wasn't given allowance by my movie actor dad and shit like that. And it just being like the least stakes you've ever heard somebody have for like being an asshole. Like I've met plenty of shitty asshole people in my life. Plenty of mean, tough motherfuckers in my life. And most of those people, you can talk to them about like their life and kind of get an idea for why they're like the way they are or why they are the way they are. But I think if you're media savvy enough and you hear Chet Hanks talk about why he is the way he is, his life, it becomes pretty clear that he is one of the many kind of right wing, or at least right leaning, grifter personalities along the lines of like Candace Owens. I mean, if you aren't aware, Candace Owens, like, you know, was involved in a lawsuit with the university that she went to over racial discrimination. That's right. The person who works for the Daily Wire, a known, massively conservative, racist, bigoted organization like the Daily Wire, yes, one of their big hosts, Candace Owens, back when she was much younger, was involved in a legal dispute with her university over racism. Like, she was upset because people were being racist to her, which is pretty cool. I would support Candace Owens in this venture. Typically, universities and organizations like them are very racist. Many people I know have experienced exactly that. However, at a certain point, I think we all know that Candace realized that that trying to grift people out of their money from a perspective of social justice, from kind of more egalitarian politics, there just wasn't much money in it, and decided to switch sides where there is a lot of money in it, because there are no shortage of right-wing think tanks and lobbyist groups and just straight up corporate funding for right-wing grift, like the Daily Wire, whose most of their money, most of their value comes from their insanely wealthy corporate backing of incredibly right-wing political hacks. This is all documentable. Go ahead and look it up. We could get into it if anyone in the chat wants to, but it's the truth. It's the reality of the situation. Yeah, and I think in a large way that Chet Hanks, like Candace Owens, saw that there was a lot of money in right-wing grift, and kind of had his own different version, of course, but a very similar kind of marketability as a dude like Andrew Tate. This tough guy who tells it as it is, and would beat you up and take your girl or whatever. That type of loser fantasy. Incel bait, I think, is a lot of what people call it. Am I allowed to say incel on Twitch? I don't know. I think you are. Yeah, I've heard other people say it. It's fine. I can't remember what platform you're not supposed to say it on. Probably TikTok, because it's terrible. But anyway. So yeah, that's what I think Chet Hanks is up to. Realized that he wasn't talented enough to be an actual actor or performer of any kind, and decided to do the whole right-wing grift thing, and is very successful at it. Has made a lot of money doing exactly that, coining terms like white boy summer, and doing interviews with people like Andrew Callahan. So yeah, I think it's worked out well for him. I wish him nothing but the worst. What an absolute turd of a human. And then I guess and then Sam performed at his. How old do you think he was then?
Let's see. This was like 2015, 2016, maybe.
So in his like mid-20s.
Yeah.
Damn. Yo, that's fucking hilarious, dude.
Wait, whoa.
Oh my god.
He was in one of the Bratz movies.
What?
One of his credits is the Bratz the movie, like based on the weird noseless dolls.
Oh my god, that's so perfect. Oh my god. He's exactly like another character in popular media that I totally forgot about, that he is almost exactly like, and in fact could be the third brother of, is the Paul brothers. Like Chet Hanks is basically the third Paul.
This feels correct.
I think, I was saying, it's the right-wing grift thing. And I think Aaron, that's the baseball one, Logan and Jake Paul are essentially in that same kind of like right-wing grift space, but it's coming from a, moderate Republican perspective rather than like alt-right hardcore fascio goobers like the Daily Wire. So, yeah, I mean, especially when you consider like the whole Logan's NFT grift and both of their involvement in combat sports, which is predominantly ran and promoted by people who are fairly conservative at minimum, to like being a weirdo fascist criminal involved with organized crime like Dana White, who owes most of his career, a substantial portion of his company's success to Donald Trump. So, yeah, I think the right-wing grift because most of because our country skews so far to the right. Sorry, I'm not drawing anymore. I'm gonna just for a minute go to cam. So now I'm just chatting with a cat in my lap. There we go. There we go. But yeah, because America skews so far to the right anyway, even our liberals are basically conservatives. Did you see that? Anyway, yeah, I think that it's easy for people kind of more towards the moderate side of the right to be successful grifters either way. It's just the only way that doesn't work is if you're a leftist. You can't be a leftist and a grifter because there's no money in it. You can look at a couple different successes, like Hasanabi, who I think it's kind of unfair to say it's left-wing grifting when a lot of the money he makes is not like based on him doing any kind of grifting or pretending to be someone he's not, which is, or even it's how do I put it? Hassan's whole thing is essentially just trying to be the first stop in some kind of leftist political awareness in the United States. Someone who is really grifting for the left would be doing, well, I don't want to name names here, but there are no shortage of people who have tried to make this a successful grift and have crashed and burned pretty hard. Peter Coffin. Mio, people like that. And it kind of blows up in their face because the thing is leftists are a little bit more politically aware and able to kind of see the grift coming. I think a lot of people will still accuse Hassan of being a grifter, but I watch a lot of Hassan, and I gotta tell you, there's a certain amount of that accusation that comes from just the fact that socialists mean no money, and that's a direct quote. I think it's pretty absurd to think that when Marx and Engels, well, Engels specifically, was not necessarily a poor man. The people who founded socialism as a philosophy, many of them were not destitute. Marx was bad with money. That's its own interesting commentary we can get into. But yeah, it's kind of an admission of lack of awareness around the history of left movements and things like that. Some people, despite where they are in the hierarchy of classes, are still believe in certain kinds of egalitarianism. And does that really exist very much now? Not really. But it did in the past. So it's curious and a bit frustrating that we can use so much of our time discoursing about the personalities and how much money those personalities make streaming 8 days or 7 days a week. That instead of doing something about the terrible situation we're all in, Hassan is an entertainer and kind of the introductory steps into online leftism. It's not like Hassan's gonna teach you all about dialectical materialism or anything like that, but he will introduce you to the concept. A lot of other people do the work that is more instructive, gives you more idea of how to get involved directly with left movements and things like that. But anybody, I think one of the most misunderstood things is anybody involved in left tube, bread tube, left Twitter, kind of leftist discourse on the internet. I think that we misunderstand that all of these people are entertainers. Some of them are also activists. Yeah, absolutely. But they are entertainers in that position. On their YouTube channels, on their Twitter, on their Twitch. Me, right now. Yeah, I'm a leftist. Yes, absolutely. I have gotten involved in some actions in my day. Don't need to get into detail. But yeah, I am an entertainer. I've been acting since I was 3. I've talked at no length or no. I talked a lot about this in the past. That's the world I know best, and the best way I know how to uh, help promote the movement is, yes, be involved, but also use what I am able to do as an entertainer, as an actor, as an artist. Use that to try and agitate, to inform, to I don't want to use the word incite. I feel like that's legally dubious. But inspire. Inspire people to be more involved, get more involved in their communities, get involved with an organization, go out and support actions by activists, get involved to the level that you are comfortable with, and then push that ever so slightly over and over again until we have an actual leftist movement in this country, because the reality of the situation is we don't. It's a sad reality to see, especially when the conservative and alt-right kind of coalition is so... They fight, sure, they have little infights, but many of those conflicts are kept very in-house, and many of those are for show. And it's pretty embarrassing to every day open Twitter and see more open left-on-left discourse about how, the anarchities, hate all the tankies, and the tankies hate everyone except for themselves. It's exhausting, and it's unnecessary, and it's not helping anyone. It's helping certain people's individual careers, and I don't think that is what we ought to be striving for. Personally, my opinion, I think, yes, it's good to have discourse amongst your community, online or otherwise. It's good to talk about different ways that we want to approach a liberated and equal society, egalitarian society. It's important to have those conversations. It's just, I don't think all of them need to happen in the public eye. I think many of our biggest problems can be solved with a fucking email. Directly from one person to another. But, here we are. So, yeah, talked about grifting. I managed to talk too long about Hasanabi. Talked about Fenton and Sam Cedar being the same person and that blowing my mind. Alright. I think I'm getting back to this drawing now. Yeah, so this is not bad. I think I need to start coloring in the figure, though. Now that I've got the background kind of blocked in color-wise. Might tone down the bright white coming from the doorway. I wanted to have a certain amount of silhouetting happening on this figure. It's going to be a lot less colorful than the reference. I guess a lot less, it's going to be dark. That's all I'm trying to say. What layer is this? Oh, good. This has nothing on it. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So, I don't want to start with the dark colors. I want to start with the highlights. Or maybe I'll just start... Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to start with the midtones. So, find a nice dark gray. Not that blue, this blue. Very muted. Yeah, that's good. Nope, that's not a midtone. That's maybe a shade tone. I think this is right around where we want it. So this is going to be the coat and the pants. Am I on the right layer? Yes. Ooh, this is coming out more green than I wanted, though. Against this background. Color relativity is something that continues to blow my mind as an artist. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And it's something you hear Jacob talk a lot about because he's colorblind, if you watch Drawfee. Yeah, because he's so fucking good at coloring. His sense of how to use color is so strong that sometimes it's just like, wait, how the fuck are you colorblind? I'm not good at this, and you're colorblind. How are you crushing it so hard? But yeah, it's like yeah, all kinds of it's a lot. It's like all kinds of art where sometimes the things that kind of are what's the word? No, I mean, I guess I can't think of exactly what I'm trying to say, but ultimately it's the differences in all of us that make our art stand out and um, kind of tell our audiences about us, you know? The obstacles in our path tend to uh, come out and show up in ways that distinguish us, make it clear who the artist is, and in some cases even what they go through to make the art. And that's part, in my opinion, that's part of the appeal, you know? Just realizing I could have just used the fill tool on most of this if I had just duped my line layer, but that's okay. I'm doing it the hard way.
No, 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 not the hard way. The artisanal way.
Yeah, seasonal way. Thank you, Sam. Very Sonoma County of you.
Well, you gotta zhuzh things up a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, man. gonna throw artisanal on everything I do now. It's just gonna be like a marketing device. I don't think they can do any. I don't think they could get mad at me for being like my art is artisanal, artisanal. I don't even know how to say that word.
Buy Weston's artisanal pre-used T-shirts.
Yeah, I forgot. I haven't done this in so long. I forgot what I have on offer right now. Yes, buy my used paint shirts that I don't wash. They're art, and you can hang them on your wall or be a nasty little freak. I don't really care. In fact, I love a nasty little freak. So if that's what you're gonna do with my shirts that I'm not washing, you fucking go right on, you nasty little freak. I salute you.
I really want to like imagine there's a farm somewhere where they've taken one of your T-shirts and put it on the scarecrow.
Oh, that's smart actually. If you're a farmer, you could definitely buy my shirt and put it on a scarecrow, and I don't think that scarecrow is gonna get messed with. Personally, personally.
I mean, T-shirt owned by an authentic punk.
Yeah. Plus, it'll smell like a human, and that usually I think that'll help drive away the crows. Right, pants. That's what else I was using this color for.
The trousers.
And yeah, what was that?
I said trousers.
Yeah, the trousers. God, I did watch. I've been watching a lot of stuff lately, and me and Kat for Valentine's Day, we were very cute, and we set up. We don't usually celebrate. Like but it's been really hard. We kind of didn't do anything for my birthday because we were really broke, and we made some food. We did cute stuff, like little things that we could afford. But like Valentine's Day was coming up, and we were like, I don't know what to do, but we've been together 10 years. Is our 10th Valentine's together, and we were both kind of feeling like doing something different, doing something special, maybe celebrating in a way that we haven't before. And we, still are very broke, and as I was saying, earlier in the broadcast, we have some, hopefully have some windfall coming, or landfall, whatever that word is. We have something coming soon that hopefully will help us out of this bind. Literally NDA'd on it, so I can't talk about it on stream. But a little bit of assistance hopefully coming soon. Just really no way of determining when that'll happen or anything, so it's kind of up in the air. Which is stressful in a very uniquely fucked up way, but we'll live, is all I know. And so what we did for Valentine's was we used our food stamp money the day before to prepare some stuff to get it all ready for the day, and then we made individual pizzas with each other, and we made a fort in our bedroom with blankets and full boxes of magic cards to weigh them down, and all kinds of. I used my tripod that I use for streaming to kind of like keep the center support. We made a nice little fort. We kept it stayed up for 4 days, despite our kind of like our initial thoughts on how long it would stay up. Stayed up much longer than either of us thought it would, but partly because neither of us really wanted to do the work to take it down. Not as much as just it was so good. But yeah, it was cute. It was a good Valentine's Day. I think I'm glad we did it.
I mean, that's infinitely more interesting than probably like 65% of couples' Valentine's Days.
Yeah, fair. Yeah,
I'm
we both
lowballing
love a
that
blanket
number.
fort. What's that?
I'm lowballing that number too.
Sure. Is this distinct enough to stand out? Not really. Let's go more into the purple, darken this up. Oh, we're gonna end up real samey, aren't we? No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, that looks way better. Okay.
Yeah, that's enough of a contrast to combat the sameness.
Yeah. You're gonna do the belt that color too. I don't care. This is rough. We're not finalizing any of these colors. Although I do really like this. I'm just trying to. I'm hoping that it'll kind of stand out against this background that has a lot of the same colors. But that's sometimes just the kind of synergy a piece wants to have and benefits from. So.
You can always bring in more color in like the lighting of it too.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I love. I've already started the kind of like rim lighting kind of effects with this white line that I created out of a dupe. Yeah, thank you.
Your pro tip for everyone out there: dupe your layers when you're painting digitally.
Yeah, it's so much of what I do is just like, oh, okay, well I can just dupe this layer and change the color. I can test this out just by duping this layer and doing XYZ. I mean, if you've been watching for a while, you've seen me work on some digital stuff where I do exactly that kind of thing, just to try new shit out and not worry about like losing that whole layer. Yeah, that looks fucking tight.
It allows you to like play with the blend modes a little bit too.
Yeah, absolutely. I oftentimes will have like, I can't pull it up without. Maybe I shouldn't. But anyway, recently I was doing a piece where I did exactly that, where I had like my background layer. I wanted to start blending some of the colors in it, but I didn't want to lose some of the like fullness of some of those colors that you tend to lose when blending digitally. You tend to lose a little bit of the vibrancy, a little bit of the saturation through blending. But I didn't want to lose that, so I just duped my background layer, and on the top layer started doing the blending just to test it out, see if I liked it, and eventually trial and error, creating new layers when I realized I didn't like the one I was working on, just dupe a new one, start over. A lot less time than starting from scratch.
Oh, yeah. And we like to work smart, not hard.
Always. I, not a fan of working hard, truly. I am an anti-fan of hard work. That's why I'm an artist.
I don't want to lie, and I don't mean to insult this model in any way, but, like, he looks better with an octopus head.
Yeah, he has this, like, Jack Harlow kind of vibe to him that...
I think it's just, like, the look to me is, like, his face is too vacant. I'm not getting a lot.
Those eyes! That's fair. That's fair.
He looks scared.
He's obviously very handsome. Probably pretty good at his job. This pose is solid. He looks pensive. It's very suit modeling kind of look that he's got here. I actually was looking through. The only reason I'm giving him a positive appraisal because I was looking at a lot of like I was trying to find John Hamm in a suit because John Hamm looks fucking great in a suit.
Oh my gosh!
Trying to find Oscar Isaac in suits. Oscar Isaac looks great in suits, but neither of those two men know how to fucking pose with them. I couldn't find a good example of either of those men posing, like, red carpet or otherwise, in a suit where it was just like, that's the pose. That's how you pose in a suit. Both of them looked really awkward, and it was like, you guys
just calling them out.
They have charisma coming out of their fucking ears. I don't understand how they don't understand how to utilize that in a modeling kind of context.
Modeling is a learned thing. You have to learn how to present yourself to a camera. Not everybody has that instinct.
But you learn similar skills as an actor. It doesn't make sense to me. Also, this is coming back around to another point I was going to make today, which is American actors suck ass.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Agreed.
it's really frustrating to me. I didn't realize it until I
Mm-hmm.
was, well, I mean, I've always kind of known it in my heart of hearts. But the method is garbage, and we should throw it the fuck away.
I've never
I've
liked
always known
Method.
that.
I've never liked
Huh?
Method.
No one likes the method. No one thinks the method works. It's like Joaquin Phoenix, Daniel Day-Lewis, and fucking nobody else. Everybody else is a liar and pretends that they do it, but they just want an excuse for being a fucking prick on set. Anyway, my point is that we were watching Ghosts, the BBC show,
Okay,
which
yes.
is really fun.
The BBC one is fantastic.
Thank you. Yes, I think you're following where I'm coming from here. So we were watching that. We made it through the first 2 or 3 seasons or whatever. Really loved it. And Kat was like, and then we got access to an Amazon account. I don't know if they want me to out them publicly, but we got access to an Amazon account, and we started watching Ghosts, the U.S. version.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's not the right order to watch them in.
No, we finished all that we had of the UK one. No, I see what you mean. I see exactly.
Yeah, there it is.
Because all of the performances, comparatively, were. I don't know how to put this nicely, but it made me lose all faith in American acting institutions.
I know how to put this nicely because I've been a director before. The American performances are not as grounded in the situation as the British performances are. They are much more in a presentational, this is a funny show way.
You're absolutely correct, and that is the right way to put that in a nice way. I was going to say something along the lines of, it was similar lines, but it may be more insultingly. I just think that the chemistry between a lot of those actors' characters weren't there. And I think that's putting it nicely. And I think that a lot of the issue in between these, if you're reading between the lines of how these productions break down, is often time. Because in many situations, actors have their characters on paper, they have the work done long before, in other places, have the time and ability to do that, compared to American performers and actors. We see more and more coming up through people doing interviews, even some that don't even realize that the admissions they're making are pretty damning of the industry in the States. But how limited the time they have to read through the character on paper and manifest the character into their real life, into the shared universe we all exist in, that they're presenting to us on screen, is minimal at best.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, like, God, I think a really great example of this, of people talking about it and not realizing they were admitting how shit our system is when we were looking at the Netflix production schedule for their Marvel stuff, when they were still doing stuff with Marvel.
Mm.
The Jessica Jones, the Luke Cage, the Iron Fist, all of these shows had incredibly tight turnarounds. I think there's a way to do that right. And in fact, you look back into American film history and you see like the incredibly tight turnaround on things like Frankenstein, or other like really classic studio era films where they had, a month or less from pre to post production to finish this fucking movie. But because those studios were paying a salary to everyone who worked for that company, from the techs to the actors, it kind of meant you were better able to do your job because you weren't being pulled in this direction or that direction. You weren't, doing a commercial for Sony next week, so you didn't have time to study your lines for the movie that's going up 2 weeks from now. You weren't having to audition over and over again for one production to see if maybe you get the job, things like that. The production schedules were so tight that the studios having such a contractual obligation to those performers and making sure that they weren't going to be a flop of a production meant that in most cases, actors were actually able to pursue their craft rather than haphazardly throw out all kinds of content over 5 different mediums to make sure that their career wasn't gone next month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, the quick turnaround stuff causes a lot of problems and a lot of misinformation as well. Like, one of the biggest things is, like, anytime a woman does a period piece, they always do the interviews and they complain about how uncomfortable the corsets are and how uncomfortable the underwear is and how, like, they can't breathe and how they're passing out backstage. Well, that's because they haven't had enough time for a proper costume fitting for those corsets. Not
You're damn
every
right.
person is going to fit into the same undergarment the same way. I make corsets. Mine fit wonderfully because they're made specifically for my body.
Yeah, and there is a certain amount of like just getting used to wearing that garment that needs to happen before you go and perform, especially at like a high pace, or if you're doing some kind of like I mean action movies. You know, shit like that, there needs to be, like, that time to allow an actor to get used to moving in something like that. Mm-hmm. You can't just throw them to the wolves and expect everything to go, you know, without a hitch.
Yep. I think another problem that Ghosts was facing as well is that just, like, there are pitfalls of American sitcoms versus the way that they make sitcoms in the UK.
Sure.
Like, in America, it's not necessarily about the character development or anything like that. They want to get jokes per minute. That's what they're looking at. How many laughs can we get per minute? How much retention can we keep while people are watching this show so that they will stay through the commercials?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And again, this is a huge problem that we come... I hate to I hate to be so good at my job, but wrapping everything back into itself through this conversation, what's to blame for this but a profit motive? In many countries, almost every country, there is much more of a much less privatization among the entertainment industry. Many, if you watch most independent film, or international film rather, if you watch any international film, you will see among the credits the, Canadian Ministry of Film or whatever. I can't remember the name of it, but most countries across the world have their own state sponsored, at least, funding of the arts. We don't fucking do that. Not even a little. In fact, what we do is we pay the military, we pay the institutions of this country to have them in films, to let them do propaganda to our society. It's a pretty fucking grim, horrible thing. But yeah, watch any action movie that people are wearing military uniforms, and you're goddamn right that the military took a cut. Gets a big cut. Gets
there's actually
big old payout.
There are laws saying that if you are going to represent the U.S. military, that you have to have a consultant from the military on set.
Precisely. Exactly. So, yeah. This is a big reason. This is exactly what we're talking about, is the fact that because our media is profit driven. Not even driven. It's entirely motivated by the potential for profit, which sadly most media companies are having a harder and harder time actually making money on the artistic product they are creating, and in fact relying on not subsidies, but relying on vertical and horizontal integration and hostile, like, corporate takeovers and things of that nature to gain a profit predominantly, or maybe not predominantly is the wrong way to put that, but in no small part due to how our country's tax legislation is written. So that in many cases, like you see with the acquisition of Warner Brothers from Discovery, that so much of why they wiped so many programs, both finished and unfinished, from their slate was for tax purposes. A write-off. But in order to get the tax break from those productions, they have to never see the light of day. They can't make any money on them. So it's not necessarily profit for making art, and in many cases it's profit for destroying it. Kind of like what the Nazis did, you know? How they destroyed art all over the world. Kind of like how all imperialists and colonialists have done all across the planet since for centuries. Centuries on centuries on centuries. It's almost like the media apparatus of this country is just one more form of colonialism or something. I don't know. One more way for us to spread our very uniquely disgusting propaganda to the world. So I'm glad I chose this industry to work in. It's something I really enjoy.
Well, I'm just gonna be over here creating art, so people
Yeah,
can buy
right.
it if they want, whatever.
Right. I talked recently, not that recently. I think a lot about this, and basically, it's interesting seeing how so much of the video game industry is kind of like used as another form of. I mean, it's not even just another form. It's like the video game industry is basically just another arm of the military-industrial complex. This is like both the clear examples, obvious examples, like promoting
Are we speaking about like a
ideas that they.
specific niche or the entire video game industry? Because I really find it hard to believe that Pac-Man wants me to join the army.
Well, I couldn't say this about. I mean, obviously, these are. It's very difficult to kind of like make these. To map this against every game that's ever been made. However, I think where it becomes very clear is games like Modern Warfare is a really obvious example.
Okay,
Especially
yeah. So again, the ones that have to be endorsed by the military in order to be made.
Precisely, as well as ones that are made by the military. Are you familiar with? Oh man, let me remember the name.
I mean, I've probably heard of it, but I don't like to play shooty games, so.
America's Army. America's Army was is basically openly U.S. military propaganda. Now, yeah, Pac-Man doesn't necessarily have like you were saying, Sam. It doesn't have like this the same cultural perspective that it's trying to sell us within its within the gameplay. But for most, just like the film industry, for most of video game industry's life, it has been in many ways beholden to the military-industrial complex, and in cases like America's Army, was created specifically for American military propaganda, and as well as like how so much of the armed services puts into recruiting online through platforms like Twitch, through YouTube, and things like that. There's no shortage of examples. I wouldn't assert this if there wasn't, if there was like a shortage of things that just make this fairly abundantly clear. As I've said, I'm not the smartest person, but I know a cat when I'm looking at a cat. I know a duck what's the saying? Anyway, you know what I mean. Is that some things are just kind of really obvious and kind of hard to hide, and how
I mean, I
even innocuous games like Pac-Man, uh, through kind of the modern platforms that you can play them on, can be used for recruitment and for at least the means of uh, spreading the ideas put forth from the American Armed Services and things like that, as well as being a place where recruitment does happen and happens often. And happens of people who are, in some cases, not even old enough to be in the armed services.
I will agree with
And
you for like major platforms and like maybe for like the actual like companies that like they're distributing the games because that's kind of where that commercial aspect kind of lies. But so many of the games that I play are made by independent creators.
no, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, I just mean like even those games that in some cases are uh, have fairly radical messages and can be really cool, kind of uh, even like have really cool progressive communities. Uh, can be, I mean, played by some drill sergeant on their like army Twitch channel. Uh, and if it's a game that has online co-player or competitive, they can use their American Army uh, 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 Twitch channel to try and recruit, teenagers and children um, and adults using that game, playing competitively with them. There's
Wait,
a bunch of examples of
does the
the
US military
service.
have a Twitch channel?
Uh, look into it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. They
Okay.
at least did
Because
for
I
a
mean,
long
like,
time.
if they do and they're having people do that, then absolutely you are 100% correct. I'd have to question, like, if I see someone from the military doing it on their own personal Twitch. That I
Yeah,
feel like that's personal agenda kind of stuff. But I mean,
yeah.
I understand what you're saying is like it's drilled into their heads. But it's
What?
still them of their own volition doing it. No one from the military is actively telling you get on Twitch and you stream and you try and get these kids into the army right now.
Well, that's where American Army or America's uh, yeah, America's Army kind of comes into the play. That's exactly what it was for. Um, and not only I looked into it while we were chatting, and not only does the armed service have like its own Twitch channel, it has its own esports team
Oh, that I believe. Because
on Twitch.
it's a
Yeah,
sport, so they have to have a team. They have a team for every sport.
right,
They have a team for concert. So
right, exactly. Yeah. So yes, to answer your question, ultimately, the armed service does have a Twitch, and
how many
they do use
followers do
it.
they have?
Ooh, it's a good question.
I'm curious now. I just feel like
It's gonna be sad, so just prepare yourself.
oh, I just want to know how big their echo chamber is. Cuz I don't feel like unless you're already pro military, you're probably not looking for their Twitch channel.
26K in the army.
That's not a lot. I mean, we don't have a lot, but we're also not a military service. You would expect them to have more.
The Marines. I don't know if this is verified. Doesn't look like it. So this is just. But yeah. Jesus, yeah. The Army channel Well, they evidently haven't streamed for a couple of months here, so. But, yeah, I just not to sound like a broken record, but America's Army. So I wanted to talk more about this game. I think I've talked about it a little on stream before, but there's a lot of interesting information about this game. I'm just reading from the Wikipedia. This is accessible to anyone. Stop me if you've heard this one before. America's Army was a series of first-person shooter games developed and published by the U.S. Army, intended to inform, educate, and recruit prospective soldiers. Launched in 2002, that's the year after 9/11, the game was branded as a strategic communication device designed to allow Americans to virtually explore the Army at their own pace and allowed them to determine whether becoming a soldier fit their interests and abilities. America's Army represents the first large-scale use of game technology by the U.S. government as a platform for strategic communication and recruitment. The first use of game technology in support of U.S. Army recruiting. The Windows version 1.0, subtitled Recon, was first released on July 4th, 2002. As of 2014, there had been over 41 versions and updates released, including updates to America's Army Proving Grounds, which was released in 2013. All versions have been developed on the Unreal Engine. The game was financed by the U.S. government and distributed by free download. America's Army has also been...
Wait, how many updates again?
41 versions and updates.
Sounds like they can't make a very good game.
Well, I don't think many people who played it would agree with you. Not that it was a good game, but because it didn't matter. You know what I mean? It is a like so many kinds of our media consumption. Liking this game is, actually, we were talking about Hogwarts Legacy.
Oh, the wizard game.
I'm not backtracking. I'm not changing the subject. I'm just further illustrating my point. We were talking about Hogwarts Legacy recently, or just a little bit ago. The thing about Hogwarts Legacy that so many people were talking about was how personal it felt to them to be able to be a Hogwarts student, to jump into that world and dive in and play around in a world they've been reading about since, in many cases, they were, like, in some cases, toddlers, children, little kids. We, in this country, have this kind of inclination towards using our consumption as an identifier of who we are. I'm guilty of this just as much as just about anybody else. If you've ever heard me talk about Willow, we kind of brushed on this subject when we were talking to Alan Farney in our episode of Ignore the Bird, Follow the River with him, where we touched on tribalism within communities of nerds, essentially. But how that maps so interestingly over American social and political conversations and discourse. Well, where America's Army is concerned, and why America's Army and Hogwarts Legacy don't need to be good games, because they are an identifier to these people. They identify you as belonging to a certain kind of mentality, ideology, group, community. In the case of the American Army, or America's Army, and in both cases, really, yeah, Hogwarts Legacy and America's Army is denoting of a very conservative system of beliefs. One that would be referred to by most of them as the normal way to be. And, I fight against that kind of thing. This idea that cultural hegemony is somehow normal, or that white cis male is normal or de facto the default, is fundamentally wrong on a biological level, on a social level, and virtually every other single solitary way that we can measure society and its changes and its beliefs. No. It is inaccurate. And, however, the people who would wield hegemony like a cudgel against marginalized people, and can and do, are directly benefiting from helping people buy into this idea that there are certain aspects of, or certain ways that you could be born that make you more quote-unquote normal than others. That some people are standard and some people are substandard. Not adjacent. And anyone who tries to tell you these people believe adjacent is what they mean, and not substandard. I think if any amount of pushback or inquiry will reveal exactly what these kind of people are. Cowards at best. Fascists at worst. And either way, they're not my friends. Not my friends at all. They're, I hate to use the word enemy, but they are certainly not my friends. So yeah. Okay, we're getting close to 7. I really gotta pee, but I'm having a lot of fun with this conversation. I'm gonna come back to it in a minute, maybe read some more of this America's Army wiki, because there's so much more fun involved, all surrounding this game.
Well,
so, be right back, just a couple minutes.
I'll take us to another break.
Thank you. Oh God. So, uh, anybody listening in chat, just tell us. Imagine the worst possible EDM from 2015 and 16, and then imagine that playing while Sam is doing fire dancing. And that would have been the Chet Hanks party.
Yeah.
I'm still fascinated by this. I wish I was there. I wish there was video. I want to be there, just to document it. You know, maybe that's a fault of mine. Maybe I'm uh, falling into the trap of that I'm warning about myself.
Weston, when they invent a time machine, I will take you back to that party, and we will make content out of it.
And it's all right as Americans.
I was there.
God damn it.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, I experienced it.
Oh! I can
Oh.
ignore this light source. I'm going to ignore
It's
this
not
light
casting
source.
much light at all.
No, it is not. Especially in the contrast of the very bright light coming from the doorway.
Mm-hmm.
And it ruins my composition. Not to mention, I think my figure is over it.
You know what?
For the
F
most
that
part,
window.
The window doesn't exist.
What window?
We don't want to just copy the thing that we see. We want to make it different.
That's why it's a reference.
Yeah, damn it. Okay, I'm just trying to figure out. How this fill tool is going to work. Just checking all my lines, basically. Okay, cool. So I just need a nice line right here.
I really love the colors that you used for the skin.
Thank you. I really like colors.
It's like hyper-saturated pastels.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm starting to realize that a lot of my like strengths kind of are very much in that kind of like if this were 20 years ago, I would probably be trying to be a inker for a comic book company. That would be something, honestly, that'd be something I'd be interested in right now. I really like doing colors and making things look colory. That's my jam. So, if you're hiring, if you need someone to do colors for your comic book, let me know.
I'm
What is
kind of
happening?
maybe
Why isn't this
working on a comic book right now. Just
Well,
writing
you
the
know
story part. I will need artists for it.
Well, I, am available.
It's about a college of elemental magic.
Oh, that's cool. Tell me more, Sam. Tell me more.
Well, I haven't developed it too far yet, because it's, like, kind of something that I just started brewing in, like, the past week. But,
Okay.
I kind of got the idea. I'm like, I think I've told you about the magicians.
Right. Yeah, I watched, most of the Magicians.
Oh,
I think we stopped when midway through the season, or no, it was the season after they actually got to the magical fantasy Magic Land.
okay. Yeah, so, all of the talk about the wizarding game kind of made me start thinking more about the magicians again, and then I watched, the new season of Vox Machina on top of that, and a big part of the arc is dealing with, like, Keyleth and her, like, journey and learning, like, all of the elements. I know it was, like, really heavily inspired by, like, Legend of Korra, which I feel bad that I haven't watched yet. It is on my list. But I kind of wanted to, like, meld those ideas and put it in, like, a very modern setting.
Okay.
So, like, it's like, the way I imagine it is, like, I have one character, like, have their story starting to be written, but, it's like they have this very traumatic event happen to them, and they eventually, like, get so overwhelmed by it that they're going to, like, unalive themselves
Sure.
And then like as they are trying to do so, they are rescued by someone who has very similar powers to them, and they like recruit them into the school so that they can learn how to control their abilities and how they can use their abilities to help other people.
Okay. Yeah, no, I never watched any Critical Role, and I feel like that's a mistake because of how much I love D&D. But yeah, I never I was just never able to like by the time I was ready to watch it, they were like,
Deep.
it's hundreds of hours of
Yeah.
footage to watch. I need like a cut down version.
There
um,
probably is like on YouTube somewhere like some cut where it's like all the important stuff from like campaign 1.
right, there's a big they have a huge community online, so I'm sure there's
Mhm.
something that would kind of like help the people just getting introduced.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, instead of having thousands of hours, it's only like 5 hours. That's still a lot of time.
No, totally, yeah. Um, so yeah, that's oh fuck, that looks sick. Okay, I'm
That
like
is giving me very like comic book panel vibes.
big. Yeah, I'm pretty into this. I gotta tell you. I don't know if I like that rim light layer. I think I'll adjust it later. Kind of,
It's a little intense.
yeah, mute that down. But yeah, I'm really liking this composition and everything. It's very nice. Um,
Does this cephalopod have hands or like tentacles in the sleeves?
oh, I was gonna be easy on myself and just do hands, but I was gonna make them match the flesh tone of the cephalopod frame.
Nice. Honestly, I'm not sure, like, for me, what would be harder, to draw tentacles or to draw hands.
Yeah.
They're
No,
both hard!
same, honestly. It's neither of them are the uh, easiest thing to do. Although I will say one of my recent drawings, I so I was talking about doing a lot more physical art in the last few weeks. Um, since it's been a couple of months at this point, trying to get back into it after the just losing all motivation for digital art. Around, geez, it was like October, because that was when it really started blowing up, right around when I usually make a lot of my commissions. um, so yeah, it's been a few months of me getting back into physical art. But anyway, I've uh, really been trying to refine and even like as I'm trying to improve on some of my technical aspects, I'm kind of trying to turn harder into my own stylistic approach that I've always kind of had. Um, Actually, I think about it's part of it's something I've thought about our conversations a lot, Sam, because you've been so encouraging of my weird little goblin people that I draw, that aren't necessarily easy to look at, but are definitely part of the uh, way that I make art.
I think they are so fun and interesting to look at.
Well, thank you, Sam. I definitely have taken a lot of those comments to heart, and that's a lot of what I've been working on lately. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is because we were talking about tentacles and stuff like that. And I've gone through a lot of my old work and realized that in a lot of cases, instead of drawing like hands or uh, a lot of their I shorthand a lot of those kinds of shapes in a kind of cartoony way, but in a way that almost feels much more like tentacles than actual people. Um, But that's just yeah, something I've been noticing
Well, then
and
this is just a
kind of
natural
diving into.
evolution.
Totally. Yeah. So I've been just having fun. Like, maybe I'll go grab the thing I'm talking about because one of the pieces me and Kat were working on. It's another thing I've been working a lot with my partner on art, which we've always done, but we've been doing more of it lately. And they're just so talented, and it brings something else out in what I do. Um, but yeah, so fuck, I've lost my train of thought. But yeah, ultimately, uh,
Oh no, another
been
train
having
has
a
been
lot more fun.
derailed.
Yeah, I've just been having fun making cool art, and remembering that like all of this really cool, like more realist kind of like compositions and stuff I've been doing over the last year or so. They're great. They're fun. I like doing it, but it's so far removed from my natural like inclinations or style as an artist that like a lot of it is like, well, it's just not as fun, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't feel like it's not me. I feel like I've developed my own ability and uh, way of making art digitally that feels very unique to myself. Like how many people are gonna do this guy the way
No
I did
one
it,
but
right?
you, and I'm so glad you made him.
Yeah, thank you.
He's so freaking cool. I want him in my D&D campaign.
Yeah, he's a handsome guy. And just a handsome little cuttlefish.
A cuttlefish.
So yeah, I think I've got my own thing digitally. I do it my way. I make things that I enjoyed making. Um, but yeah, it doesn't change the fact that when I sit down with a pencil or pen, things look a lot different. Um, and it looks more like me, more like something that I do, that I enjoy, um, that comes from my own personal creative uh, perspective. And yeah, I think something that, yeah, especially people who've been watching longer definitely know about me as an artist is something that I I love doing. Uh, I want my art to stand out, to be distinct, to tell a story, to reflect who I am. You know, I think that's, I mean, it's the point to me, to tell my story, to let you know who I am, to remind me who I am in some cases. Uh, and yeah, I think digital is great for that. But in all of the hustle trying to do so much digitally, kind of forgot that I have so much passion um, for things that are analog and aren't necessarily like pretty or nice or expected of artists. You know, what I do is uh, like a lot of my life experiences, not necessarily easy to look at. Um, you know, not like uh, not like any of us have had a easy go of it, I'm sure. But yeah, I think that's in fact kind of my point, in that for most of us, life has been incredibly difficult, and when it comes to creating, I want my work to talk to you, to let you know that, you know, in some cases, like we might have very similar experiences, very different or very similar feelings. We might come from things from a very different perspective, but in so many other ways, we're a lot alike, you know? And I think that's one of the really beautiful things about making art is being able to connect to people who you might not normally connect to. I mean, yeah. All I know is this is fire, and I have a long way to go still, but I fucking love this shit. Oh my god. Yeah, this was a good one. We're getting close to the end here. We've got another 20 minutes, so I'm probably just gonna futz a little bit here and there with this composition, and maybe finish it off stream. But
I'm gonna hop off mic for a second because I can hear my rabbits doing something weird, I think with cardboard or wood, so I gotta go check on that.
thank you, Sam. Yeah. Uh, yeah. So I'm just gonna futz around here for a little bit longer, and at 7, I'm gonna call it a good day. And yeah, feel free to ask any questions while I continue messing around with this. Mostly just darkening things up. Yeah, if you haven't seen Vox Machina, the newest season was really fucking good. Me and Kat absolutely binged that in a very short period of time. It was just too good to stop watching. And yeah, like I was saying to Sam, I haven't really watched much Critical Role, but damn, after this latest season, it might be time to start, even if it's years after. It's already like, yeah. I think, yeah, they were on mic when they were talking about like compilations and stuff like that. And Critical Role definitely has a big enough fan base where, yeah, I'm sure I'll be able to cut down the amount of time it takes to get indoctrinated.
I'm back.
How are the rabbits?
They're good. They're just chewing on an old cardboard box that they found, like from moving stuff. But they've like
Adorable.
dragged it partially down the stairs.
Aw.
It's adorable.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't expecting that much noise.
Maybe soon we'll have even more to talk about bunnies, because me and Kat definitely want to get some bunnies.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know?
They do better in
sorry.
pairs. They're kind of like
Yeah.
guinea pigs, so.
I guess our big concern is just that the big cat, the older cat of our roommates' 2 cats, has become a lot more territorial as of late once the little guy showed up. So
Ah.
I'm a little hesitant to get new pets into the house, just because I don't know if, like, I want them to be able to kind of roam around and hang out in the house, and I don't know if Sam will be cool with that.
Yeah, that would worry me. Maybe if it was a larger breed of rabbit.
Well, that's the thing, is I've always had an affinity for the I think they're like the Flemish hare or something like that.
Oh, the big ones.
Yeah, the ones that
The
are like
ones
the
that are
size of a
dog
small
size.
dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we get one of those, which honestly,
Those ones
because
do
of
okay on their own. They just need attention from their people a lot.
yeah, and this is the time of year. I mean, anybody who knows rabbits knows that this is the time of year to start getting them. We're actually more accurately just after Easter,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of shelters end up just
Yep.
chock full of rabbits around that time of the year because everybody gets rabbits for their kids and then realize they're difficult to socialize.
Yeah, they are not good pets for young children. If
Yes.
you are thinking about getting your kid and you have I'd say under 8 years old, if you have a young kid, do not get them a rabbit. They are not ready for that responsibility, and you do not want to clean up that much poop on your own.
Yeah, and to be honest, like, even a dog for that younger kid is too much. Like, just, like, if you aren't, as a parent, prepared to take care of a lot of your kids, or at least show them how to properly care for an animal, don't even think about it. It's not a good idea. Uh, it is funny, though. I do have personal experience, anecdotal experience, that is contrary to that. When I was geez, I think I was like 5 or 6 when my mom started getting a bunch of rabbits. And granted, I am definitely saying my mom did most of the care for these bunnies, but we had, God, at different point, because my mom got really into breeding them when I was around 5. So we had one bunny, Licorice, and he was the coolest fucking pet I've ever owned in my life. Licorice was sweet and very personable. Liked to chase after balls. Like, he would kind of play fetch with you. He had all kinds of personality. We had him for a few months, and then we got a female bunny, and eventually when they got of age, we had them mate and make babies, and then my mom had, like, I think there was, like, I don't know if this is an average litter, but I feel like there was between 8 and 10. There was a lot of them. We got rid of all of those, keeping one. Ended up selling the mom to a family that had, like, a farm and wanted to have, like, bunnies and stuff. And then, no, wait, we did get rid of all of them but Licorice. Yeah. My parents got divorced, is what happened.
Well, that'll
So,
do it.
yeah, and then we moved to Reading. So, sadly, Licorice was, well, he was a black rabbit, and Reading is notoriously excruciatingly hot in the summer. So one of the 110 to 115 degree days, Licorice unfortunately succumbed to heat stroke, and we no longer had his sweet little bunny self around.
Poor little fella.
Yeah, he really wasn't meant for the climate, and it did him in.
I lost a chinchilla to heat stroke, so I understand.
Poor little guys.
They deserved better, but at
Truly.
that time I didn't have air conditioning.
Right?
The fan was not enough.
Exactly, yeah. So, we did get another bunny after that, in Reading, and we had that one for a few years, but that one got out of the cage and my dog ate it.
Oh no. That sounds
Like,
traumatic.
The dog didn't eat it. I'm exaggerating. Sorry. I mean to say that the rabbit got out of its hutch, was running around the yard, the dog chased it, grabbed it by the back of its neck, and did what a dog does when they grab something, which is they shake it. And snapped the poor little thing's neck.
He thought he was playing with it. Oh.
Yeah, so that's how that rabbit died. And unfortunate as it was, none of us were home at the time, so I think my mom got home from work and went into the backyard to check on the rabbit and didn't see it in the hutch and looked around, and that was that. Luckily, I don't think any of us saw the bunny. My mom just told us about it later. So, we didn't get another bunny after that. The dog Jazzy was the second best pet we've ever had. which is why it wasn't as painful
Mm.
when it happened. But
It's one of
yeah,
those teachable moments.
yeah. Jazzy was a really good dog. Just that was yeah, they were
It's
still really young, and yeah, maybe
dogs just don't know how to play with rabbits.
they're not. Yeah, it's not the typical playmates.
Yeah, it would take a dog a long time to adjust to being able to like actually be gentle with because rabbits are prey animals, so they already have the instinct to run, and then usually like dogs are so much bigger than they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and there's definitely a scenario where that kind of a dynamic actually works.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's
that
rare.
dog and that
Yeah.
bunny, they definitely need to like have it needs to be intentional on the part of the owners that
Yeah.
these are going to be socialized together.
Mm-hmm.
Just like this issue I'm seeing the potential for with my own or with my roommate's cats,
Yeah.
where it's like they've already been socialized. Sam especially, his first 2 or 3 years, he was living. That's not even true. I forgot. So the first year, my roommate adopted Sam with a roommate at the time who they both went and adopted like cats that had been put in a shelter at around the same time and had already become like essentially accustomed to each other. So when that roommate moved out, the cat that they got obviously went with them, and Sam stayed here, obviously. Um, so the next 2 or 3 years that we lived here, Sam was solo, and then Scott got the new cat, it's little baby Ash, and Sam's had a rough time adjusting, and is like, you know, and we're still trying to figure out how to make this, how to help them through this transitional phase, but it has been very frustrating for all of us. Uh,
You could call that Jackson Galaxy guy.
Honestly, I'm not above the most ridiculous and radical ideas for this because it is, it's like I don't know. Basically, Sam's kind of been reverting to a lot of like kitten behavior
Yeah.
because of the little guy being around. So drastic measures might be necessary,
All
and
right,
we've
we'll
tried a
call
lot
it.
of different stuff.
We'll call in the Cat Whisperer.
Yeah, something like that. Shit. Definitely couldn't hurt, that's for sure.
I don't know if that guy still has a show, but if he does, like, you might want to submit yourself to, like, because he'll, like, come and assess things for free if you can film it.
Fuck. That would be kind of tight. Gotta say.
He seems to know what he's doing. I mean, he seems super weird, but he also seems to know cats really well.
Alright, well, everybody stay tuned. We might end up on the Cat Whisperer if it's still a thing. I'll be letting you know the dates. When and if. Alright, well, I like this reflection. Happy with that. Wanted to do some lighting effects and make sure everybody knew this was water, although it's still not really looking like water. It has the slight effect of water. I think the issue is that I've done this very cartoony flat style and then started doing a more painterly approach. I think I need to just delete and erase a little bit and do something a little more hardline cartoony lighting kind of stuff. Maybe I'll go back in and put some of these kind of paintery water reflections back in.
Weston, I have good news. I just looked it up. The show that Jackson Galaxy has is called My Cat from Hell, and season 10 premieres September 1st.
Ooh.
So that means he's still doing the gig.
Alright.
We just gotta figure out how to get a hold of him.
We'll have to get in touch with Jackson Galaxy, I guess. I don't know if they'll let us make content out of the content that they're making, but we'll give it a shot, damn it.
I think once you're on the show, aside from the stuff that's like NDA, you can discuss your experience.
Yeah. Well,
a lot of people from reality shows like get on Twitch and talk about it afterwards.
Oh God. That actually reminds me of something we might not even have time for, but I'm going to start talking about this. So, I don't necessarily want to name names. I keep meaning to get in touch with this person, but me and Kat, in fact, you probably, if you're a longtime audience member, you will know that I am kind of fascinated by dating shows and reality kind of TV. I used to really hate it, and I still do, but it's definitely become something that I'm more and more interested in making, like, content, or at least, like, kind of critical kind of, like, takes on. So we started watching, I think it's Are You the One? Let me double check that. Yes, Are You the One? Which is an MTV reality dating show. That is, like, the premise is relationship scientists meet with 10 people and try and set them up with the perfect match for them, specifically designed for them, right? In season, like, 7, 8, something like that, they did one that spoke to me as a person that I've been waiting for one of these shows to do, that, like, I would want to do if I were either making or involved with in any way a reality show, which is make it absolutely chaos. Sexually, I mean. In that everybody is on a kind of more fluid vibe with relationships, both as far as, like, the shapes those relationships take, be it, like, some form of kind of understanding of the limits of monogamy, and either, like, kind of subverting to wholly tossing that out and being polyamorous, to, as well as, like, people they are attracted to, not just but, like, pansexual, bisexual, on that kind of end of sexuality as well. So all of these queer people in this house making the potential matches almost impossible to guess. I really liked this season. It is, in fact, I kind of like this show as much as I hate it. It's fascinating to me. But my point is that one of the performers, I guess, one of the contestants, whatever you want to call them, in this show, I, like, started going, man, this person looks super familiar. Where do I know them from? And it kind of perplexed me. I, went through the whole season not really being able to figure it out, and I just assumed it's, like, familiar face, not like somebody who's you actually know, but just they're familiar because they look like XYZ, because they kind of look like a couple different celebrities, but they're obviously not that person, you know what I mean? So it's like down to the last episode, or maybe we had already finished it. I can't quite recall how this happened, but I was just looking up some of the people from that show, and I looked up this person. I was like, oh yeah, I could just look them up on Google. And I realized, as soon as I searched them, oh, I know where I know them from. They make porn and put it on Twitter. So I've been following this person for a year or so. Oh my god, when I realized that they were a sex worker that I follow already, well, like shortly after watching this show, it made a lot of, it suddenly, it hit me in a way that was especially humorous, considering one of the shows we had watched very shortly before watching this season of Are You the One was one of the more recent seasons of Love Island, which another show that makes me cringe up to my ears. But ultimately, sorry, I'm realizing we have like 2 minutes left, so I'll make this short. That in that most recent season of Love Island, a contestant came on one episode, and without like having the formal like exit episode, in the next episode they were just gone. Like it just vanished from the production. And no one talked about it. And I was like, what the fuck happened to that dude that was there and then isn't there? So I looked it up, and evidently that person had done like exactly the same thing, online sex work. They had made some kind of adult content, whether that, I don't really know the specifics of it, but I think it was like just straight up porn, and gotten kicked out of the show for not disclosing that or just doing it. It is unclear.
Yeah, it's really, Hollywood ought to know better. They know where they're recruiting these people from. When they get the beautiful people to be in the show, yeah, you're getting people from all kinds of sections of the entertainment industry in LA. Yeah.
Although this was British Love Island.
Okay, same thing though.
But yeah, standards apply anywhere, you know? Man, it was the Ekin-Su season. I don't know if you watched Love Island, but it was that.
I haven't watched one of those dating shows in a long time.
Well, maybe we'll be talking about it again soon. Stay tuned, everyone.
Maybe you can convince me to watch it with you when we can trash on the show together.
Yeah, exactly. So, I could talk for hours and continue drawing, but I want to make sure me and Sam actually eat food tonight, so I'm going to call it here. But keep your eye on Nerdcrafty. It's been quiet since we entered the winter. We're doing a little bear-style hibernation, and we're coming back out of it because we're getting close to spring, and we are springing forward, baby, in a sexual way. But also in content. Keep an eye out. We're I don't know if I can say specifics yet, but if you've missed us playing D&D, and if you've missed us hanging out more often with you on Twitch and on YouTube, we do have more stuff coming down the pipeline very soon. So keep your eyes peeled to our socials at Nerdcrafty on anywhere on the social media space, from Instagram to Twitter to Facebook. We'll be keeping you updated on activity very soon here. Very excited to be bringing some of these programs back. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I am very excited.
Me too.
So, other than that, I just want everyone out there to remember to take care of yourself, take care of your friends and those around you, take care of each other, and good journey out there, pals.